Okay, so we are live now, and welcome. And those of you who are looking at the next paper who have to look at slot 2 and slot 3, we'll first quickly share with you what the paper is. And because I don't want people who have taken, who are going to take slot 2, slot 3 to worry too much about the level of difficulty and other stuff. All you need to know is what is the paper like, and I'll give it to Sadil to take you through the paper. Yeah, Sadil.
So, like we discussed in the impressions an hour ago, definitely it was not a surprise, but 21 में we used to have a questions of out of context questions, तो वो आया है इस बार और पिछले साल out of context was replaced by para completion, वो भी आया है. So basically two questions each of para jumbles, para summary, para completion and out of context questions. So VA में चार question types थे. And RC was as expected, 4 RCs with 4 questions each, total 16 questions, moderate to difficult section overall. So this is how verbal more or less was.
So if you look at verbal as a whole, similar to last year, nothing to be really worried about. Yes, instead of 3 to 2, which is para jumbles 3 para jumbles, 3 para summary, and 2 sentence placement, this became 2 into 4. That's the only change. Overall level of difficulty depends on which slot you want to compare with. Slot 1 से ज़्यादा आसान था, slot 3 से ज़्यादा मुश्किल था. So average paper था. I would not say you have to be too much worried about it. Similar. So now on to DILR. Yes, Sadhir.
DILR में one interesting, so soon a lot of speakers are going to join us, those of them who are on the way, who've given the papers. But as Ravi said, all sets बाहर से looked doable. सारे sets को देख के DILR में ऐसा लगता था कि हो जाएगा. बाहर से पता नहीं चल रहा था कि this one is clearly visible that it is not, it's supposed to be left out. But जब अंदर घुसते थे तो समझ में आया कि ये नहीं करना है. So that was how DILR का summary in a way was. Very interestingly, we come back with the numbers, कितने attempts, कितना percentile, क्या हो रहा है in a short while. But we are just doing a summary of it right now. Right, sir?
Yeah, and if you look at the 4 sets, like last year, 2 sets would have got to 99 percentile. The same thing will happen this year. Also, obviously, it depends कितने सही किए हैं आपने उसमें. But 99 percentile should be in the region of about 27, 28 marks, or could be a 1 mark lower also. So about 9 questions should be good enough, which makes it exactly like last year's paper. But as Sadil said, I'll add Raviteja. He's joined. But as Sadil said, सेट देखने में सब अच्छे लगते थे, अंदर घुसते थे थप्पड़ पड़ जाता था कहीं ना कहीं. तो वो एक प्रॉब्लम है which Zavi will talk about. And so overall similar to last year, up to 2 sets was not a challenge. Beyond 2 sets would be challenge in terms of time as well as logic. And which is why if you do something like 4 questions, you would still clear the cutoff of say 80 percentile, and 99 percentile should be similar to last year, which means about 27, 28 marks in terms of law score. Yeah, quant. Ravi, we are just summing it for people who have slot 2 and slot 3. उसके बाद हम slot 1 वालों के डिटेल में बात करेंगे. Okay? Yeah, Sadil, for quant.
So for quant, interestingly, six questions approximately were theta, right? Overall, it was a difficult section. So I think Ravi इस पे detail बताएंगे भी, right? But it seemed a difficult section, and hence the cutoff will also go down. So not to worry, right? Yeah. So
overall in terms of topics अगर देखते हैं इसके अंदर, we look at arithmetic, same 9 questions, out of which 6 odd were doable, maybe at best 7. Then if you look at algebra, 7 questions, out of which maybe 2 or 3 were doable. So the challenge आया है students का, it has been algebra. But जो लोगों को challenge लगता है, मुझे सबसे अच्छी चीज वही लगती है, which means if I am not comfortable algebra, मैं तो छोड़ता जाऊंगा ना, मेरे को कोई तकलीफ नहीं है. Remembering that मेरे को नहीं आता तो बाकियों को भी नहीं आता होगा, एंड वैसे भी लोगों को मैथ्स और अलजेब्रा तो कम ही आती है, तो नथिंग टू बी वरीड अबाउट. द ओनली थिंग वुड बी आफ्टर द पेपर यू वुड कम आउट विद लेट्स से अ बैड टेस्ट इन द माउथ कि सवाल क्वांट में ज्यादा नहीं हुए, वो हो सकता है, एंड व्हिच मींस देयर विल बी अ लोअर कट ऑफ फॉर क्वांट एज कंपेयर्ड टू लास्ट ईयर. लास्ट ईयर 99 percentile was somewhere around 33-34 marks in quant. This year it is likely to be something like this year 99 percentile is likely to be somewhere in the region of about let's say 27 marks or so. So quant भी अच्छा हो गया है, कम हो गया है, and overall 99 percentile would be in the region of about 80-81 marks. Okay, so that's the broad structure of the paper. And don't worry if the quant is tough, don't worry if DI सबके लिए मुसीबत हुई है, कट ऑफ नीचे आ जाएगी, चिंता मत करो. And slot 2 slot 3 people please get out from here now. तुमको जितना चाहिए था बता दिया है. if you listen to anything more, you're only going to create problems for yourself. So छोड़ देते हैं हम. And now let's focus on the slot one paper. And yeah, we are sharing the PPT. Great. So PPT has come. Okay. So चलो अब बात करते हैं. रवि, यहाँ पे मेरे ख्याल से you will have to take the lead, because मैं तो 12th man था, साइड से देख रहा हूँ, तुम सबका ज्ञान लेके इनको सुना रहा हूँ. You are the one who's taken the paper. Yes.
मैं तो तब से आके बैठ के 2 मिनट का मौन रख रहा था सर. नॉन इंजीनियर इस पेपर में. I mean, quant was definitely not how we expected.
Yeah.
I mean, how we would normally expect CAT to be. I mean, they have brought back topics which were long obsolete 5-6 years ago. I mean, those kind
Ravi, let's go structures as per the PPT. And a quick look on the paper structure. Anything you want to add with respect to the paper structure? So that ये structurally PPT follow कर लेंगे हम लोग.
I think that it's correct only. There were 4 passages of RC, 4 passages out of which 3 of them were easy to read. 1 of them was slightly moderate to difficult to read. But each passage had a good mix of fact-based and inference-based questions. Some questions were very straightforward, but some inference-based questions had some triple negatives coming into picture, which made solving questions not so easy, even in easy-to-read passages. So I would rate the overall level of difficulty of VARC of RCs as moderate. VA, coming to VA, there was one surprise element that 2021 CAT the type of questions, odd sentence parajumbles, like Ari is saying that she didn't know that one of that there were odd one out questions. Odd sentence parajumbles.
Mix it up with parajumble only.
Correct. So what I was able to see is that in this paper that I took GP, I didn't see any kind of jumbling in the order also. Like first 16 questions was RCs. After that, there were 2 questions of parajumbles. Then there were para completion. Then there were 2 questions of para jumbles. Then there were 2 questions of odd sentence para jumbles, and then there were last 2 questions for para summary. There is no intermixing of these types of questions. They came as
if you look at the last column, number of doable questions, that 15, 16, you would be okay with that. Okay.
I mean, doable questions, I mean, attempt,
obviously.
the kind of questions that you will probably feel confident about attempting, given that people have been focusing a lot on VA. I think in VA also the questions were not the odd sentence ones were, one of the odd sentences was very straightforward. One of the parajumbles was also pretty easy to figure out. I think out of those 8 questions, there were about 4 questions nevertheless which could have been done.
Right.
And when it comes to RCs, barring those one odd inference based bouncers, which of the following, if true,
we'll have a detailed thing of the RC separately. Even just go back. We'll just look at Ravi, DILR 8 to 9 doable, quant 8 to 9 doable is fine with you. It looks okay. And the big paper structure overall, when you say DILR similar to last year, and the quant more difficult than last year, what would be a reasonable thing to say?
Yeah, I would say, but there is 2 question extra number system में चले गए यहाँ पे.
Okay, ठीक है. Reading comprehension, Ravi, अब detail में बताओ यार, reading comprehension तुम्हारा क्या था?
So the first one that I encountered in the paper was the passage on farmers, how the wolves coming back in some area in France is hurting them, right? While environmentalists and politicians are thinking differently, they are looking at tourism. So it was a contrast between 2 opinions. It was it was easy to read. Two questions were pretty straightforward. 2 questions which were inference based. There were a couple of options which were confusing. So at least 2 questions out of this passage was definitely there up for grabs for the students, is what I thought. Coming to the second passage, it was actually a very interesting read, but it was not very easy in terms of the words or the sentence structures. The sentences were not very simple. They were a little, complex, commas से ये करके, and बहुत सारे dot थे बीच में. So the change in work culture वाला जो था, it was about affluent society, the original affluent society करके 2-3 quotations थे उसमें, right? So using that was a little difficult to read, but yes, the questions were there which could have been doable if you took time to read and understand what the author is trying to do. He was basically trying to, there were two books which were written, two essays which were written, Original Affluent Society and The Affluent Society, and he was trying to draw a contrast between what aspects that this person is focusing on versus what aspects the other person is focusing on, and basis that you had to answer the questions. And the questions were, the answers to the questions could also have been slightly, I felt that थोड़ा वापस अगर तुमको पैसेज जाके पढ़ने का मन भी करता तो पढ़ के आप पक्के से आंसर मार्क कर सकते थे उसमें. So hence there were about 3 questions which were doable in this. Indian Ocean based geographical वो जो literature के बारे में था, it was about human behavior, how geographies and biogeographies also affect the behavior of human beings in different places. I think that was again easy. That was again, that had a little complex sentences, but understanding that passage was not difficult. In the last while I was reading the last paragraph, GP, I was reminded of you because the author said, okay, what the basis of this these arguments by these people are absolutely nonsensical somewhere. These words were used in the, so I felt good reading that. It was also an enlightening passage, I would say, but yes, there were about 2 to 3 questions which were doable in this also.
Okay. So overall, I think this is what it looks like. The parallel summary we have already discussed कैसा था पेपर में, and you have already mentioned कितने easy, moderate, difficult गए थे. 3 से 4 was not a challenge at all.
Correct. 3 to 4 questions out of verbal ability would not have been difficult. I think 4 questions in verbal ability and about 10 to 12 questions in RCs were there to be attempted. Now, if one attempts 16 questions at a decent accuracy of 90% is where I'm thinking the 99th percentile will be.
So if you do 16, 17 questions, get 12, 13 right, you will be somewhere around 33 to 34 marks.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So it will be maybe about 95 percentile.
No, that yeah, 12, 13 right will be about 95, 96 percentile is what I guess. You're going forward, at a score of about 41 to 42 is where I am thinking the 99th percentile will be.
रवि DILR पे आ जाते हैं, जहाँ पे लोगों को थोड़ा सा टेंशन दिखा है, क्वांट में ज्यादा टेंशन दिखा है, but let's look at DILR first.
Yeah, DILR. See, unfortunately for me, what happened, I'll tell you. In my paper, there was one question which was restaurant and rating mean, median, and mode wala. That was the last set I got to see, and I was only left with 7 minutes in the paper. And I realized that is the easiest set in the entire lot. Not calling it explicitly easy. I am calling it easiest among the entire lot. I mean, the problem with DILR, similar to what happened with people in CAT 2022 also, was by looking at the setup or by reading the setup or by looking at the length of data points written, you could not have judged कि ये मेरे को बनेगा या नहीं बनेगा मेरे से. You had to get into the set, try to put it on paper, try to, represent certain things and then decide. So the time for judgment for each of the sets increased from a 2 to 3 minutes or 3 to 4 minutes to probably 4 to 5 minutes for me in this paper. So none of the sets was easily there कि हाँ ये तो नहीं बनेगा, इसको रिजेक्ट कर देते हैं और बाकी
जैसे कि जैवलिन जैसा कुछ भी नहीं था कि देख के पता चल गया कोई फायदा नहीं है टाइम बर्बाद करने का.
कोई जैवलिन नहीं था. मतलब इनफैक्ट मेरा जो पहला सेट था, इट वाज अबाउट द 12 हाउसेस वाला. और वो 12 हाउसेस वाला सेट मेरे को बहुत ही लुक्रेटिव लग रहा था. 10 मिनट तक मेरे से कुछ नहीं बना उसमें क्योंकि मैं एक बहुत सिंपल पॉइंट मिस कर गया था जीपी. एंड मेरा ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड रहा है कि हर साल मैं पहले सेट में एक बहुत सिंपल पॉइंट मिस कर देता हूं जिसकी वजह से वो सेट नहीं बनता. इस बार मैं सोचा मैं दोबारा पढ़ता हूं और 10 मिनट बाद वो बन गया. बट उसमें भी देयर वर केसेस व्हिच कुड हैव बीन फॉर्म्ड. आई वुड स्टिल से इसमें इन आउट ऑफ दिस 12 houses वाले सेट में there were about 3 questions that one could have solved. The other two were a little on the difficult side, but yes, one who has figured out the number logic of it would have been able to solve all 5 questions also. ऐसा नहीं है कि पांचों नहीं कर सकते थे इसमें.
Right.
Restaurant rating वाला set was the easiest of all. सर एक सेट में मीन दे दिया था, 5 नंबर लिखे हैं जीपी, और 5 नंबर का मीन दे दिया था, मीडियन दे दिया था, मोड दे दिया था और रेंज दे दिया था.
क्या पूछा गया था फिर?
और 5 के लिए 5 नंबर थे, तो वो लिखने थे, वो 5 नंबर फाइंड आउट करने थे, राइट? एनीवन हु हैज अटेंडेड इवन वन क्लास ऑफ averages should not find solving the restaurant rating set difficult.
I think वो एक टीटा को छोड़ के रवि, वो टीटा वाला बता दीजिए, वो टीटा को छोड़ के बाकी सारे doable थे, right?
There was one question of Tita in this which said कि boss, how many of these grid points out of 25 will you not be able to fill confidently? मतलब this was not the language, but वो था, उसका essence ये था कि will not be able to fill. तो वो टीटा वाले में हो सकता है गलतियां किए होंगे लोगों ने, but 4 out of 5 questions were there which could have been solved. Coming to the college election set, college elections wala set में the first question itself said,
let me just a second, Midhun, whenever you want to come in, please do come in. Madhur is from CL Indore and Midhun is from CL Kochi and Trivandrum. So जब भी आना हो please आ जाना.
And Ravi, Midhun and Madhur have all taken the slot 1.
So जो कॉलेज इलेक्शंस वाला सेट था उसमें अगर आप पहला क्वेश्चन इफ यू रीड जीपी, इट सेड दैट व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कैन बी द टीम मेंबर्स फ्रॉम द सेम टीम,
राइट?
मतलब वो कैन बी ने मेरे को बता दिया था कि ये नहीं बन रहा, मतलब यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू गेट द एग्जैक्ट टीम्स, मतलब देयर विल बी केसेस फॉर्म या 7 + 6 + 1 या 8 + 5 + 1 टाइप कुछ केसेस बनेंगे उसमें. It included number logic. It was a caselet also, right, which made it slightly more difficult to solve. So I मतलब after having read that question, my perspective towards that set changed and I said कि boss इसमें हो सकता है 2 या 3 ऐसे question मैं गिन लूंगा जो मैं कर सकता हूँ without much effort, and there were 2 questions out of the 5 which could have been solved without much effort in that college election set. Madhur sir, you have anything to say about it?
Yes, Ravi. Overall, my take on if I talk about the entire DILR section, if I take my previous 3 attempts in CAT, I was at least able to find one set that I was able to solve fully. There used to be another set जिसके अंदर you would be able to solve around 2, 3, 4 questions, and the third set where you might be able to attempt it partially. This was possibly for the first time wherein you were not able to solve any of the sets completely. That's at least what was my take. You were able to do 2, 3, 4 questions at the most from any particular set, which is why it looked to be a lengthier section because you had to attempt more sets to at least get the same number of corrects as you were possibly getting the last year. So exactly the same thing happened in the elections wala thing, wherein I was actually able to draw 4 cases and still a lot of answers were missing. In the question in which we were talking about the 12 houses and the total number of cases possible, the total number of houses vacant, once again you had to do entire calculation to arrive at suggested prices, and still no major outcomes were actually happening. So slightly more typical, and I'll say lengthy and slightly more calculative this time. Ravi, back to you.
Correct, that's what. Even in that rating wala, restaurant rating wala, there is definitely one question which will require a lot of working. College elections mein there are 3 questions which will require a lot of working. Visa applications one was, it would require working and it was lengthy and it would require time. So I did not go through attempting the entire set at all. I just looked through the questions. I felt that it was the toughest set out of the lot, but other 3 sets you could have touched. Even if you know basics of some number logic, some numbers, some additions kind of thing, then the other 3 sets could have been touched and could have been approached in a particular manner, out of which you could have picked 2 to 3 questions from each of them, solving one set in which you could have solved about 4 questions. That is what makes me say that a good student would have been able to attempt 4 questions from that set and 2 to 3 questions each from the first and third set that is on your screen, which would take a good student score to about 24 to 27 in that range of net correct marks.
Absolutely. That's right.
Okay. Okay. So, Mithun, anything you want to add with respect to DILR? Since you have also
Yeah,
taken
so yes, sir. So I thought, like, this reiterates the importance of taking the test, mock test, especially because for me personally, when I entered into a set, that visa application, that set, I could figure out within the first 5 minutes that it's a difficult set. So I quickly jumped out of that and went to some. So it's all about understanding a set is difficult, but that's only possible if you have taken a number of mock tests. One thing. Second thing is that, again, students need not panic because the cutoffs will be of the range like maybe 8 to 10 questions, according to me. There was one set that mean, mode, median said that everyone should have done, could have found out that that's the easier of the lot. And the first one, there was a housing question, which maybe not every question one can do, but a couple of questions definitely can be doable. So overall, like Ravi told, people should gauge the cutoffs then and there itself, and then try to attempt that. Understanding that you cannot attempt all the questions from one particular set. I think that was the catch, especially once you start attempting 1 or 2 sets.
In fact, Midhunji, you talked about the importance of giving mocks, right? And
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to do this. I would like to mention VARC major. We had 4 types of VA questions, right? This time, para jumble, para summary, para completion.
Right.
Like this. We had done
Right.
this exactly in CDC 13.
Exactly.
So
And
students
CDC,
who have attempted CDC 13, they know that this kind of thing could happen, and they were prepared for it.
so every student was telling CDC 13 was a tough mock.
Yeah.
So when the students were telling me this, I used to tell them to practice that mock a lot once again.
Right.
And even after today's test, a couple of students came and told me, like, they practiced CDC 13 and VRC was slightly easy for them.
They benefited from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
तो चलो क्वांट पे आ जाते हैं now. So Ravi, Midhun and Madhu, over to you for quant.
I think some numbers have to be
between the
changed
three
on
of
this
you and
slide.
also with that.
Some numbers have to be changed on this slide. There were 2 questions on number system.
Okay.
One based on factors and one based on one was a palindrome based question. So both of the questions of number system were doable, easy.
Ravi,
What?
I think I was the one who pushed for the palindrome wala question to be included into the time speed distance category.
Madhu, तुम्हारा volume थोड़ा बढ़ा सकते हो? Your
Yeah.
volume is a bit low.
Just a sec. So I think I was the one who possibly pushed Upendra to put one question in numbers, and the other palindrome question I tried to put it into the TSD category.
Yeah,
So,
it was given on the premise of TSD, but it had nothing to do with TSD.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the
So-
actual answer was on average speed. So the final
Yes.
answer, when it is on TSD, we should take it as TSD.
Yeah, right. What took me by surprise is algebra. मैं खत्म हो गया था पेपर में वो algebra देखकर. मुझे लगा कि यार why am I even taking this paper? Because, and what happened with me was very peculiar. It has not happened ever with me, GP, before, that the first 8 questions first 7 questions in my paper were collectively algebra, one after the other.
Yes.
After that, there were 2 questions of number एक साथ, और उसके बाद एक साथ पूरे 9 क्वेश्चन मेरे अरिथमेटिक के आए. और जब तक मैं वहां पहुंचा तो मेरी फुस हो चुके थे.
So Ravi, जब हम फोन पे बात कर रहे थे, you said it was like a personal attack. It
Yeah.
felt like a personal attack, and
मतलब
we've done
उसमें-
this personal attack in the CDCs as well again.
I felt that someone who knows Ravi very well has said कि बॉस रवि से पेपर नहीं बनना चाहिए, वो ऐसा पेपर फेंक दिया मेरे मुंह पे कि बना ले.
लगा रवि.
But I felt, see, in algebra also there were a couple of in algebra, even if it was difficult, on the difficult side, if you carefully look at it, there was one question of log which could have been done very easily. Log wala question was very straightforward, right? That should have been done, right? Then coming to
Yeah, completely agree, Ravi. Log was very easy. So
then
people
coming to
are,
one question, then coming to that modulus and quadratic equation का जो question था, that was also easy. Number of solutions find
Manageable.
करना था, that was also easy. You could do it, right? Then coming to one question of there was one cubic equation, okay, and that cubic equation, the question was asking what is the smallest non-negative integer value that R can take. If you had tried 0, I think it would have worked out. I got it worked out at 0. So हो सकता है वो correct answer हो, right? I'm not very sure. I don't remember the question exactly, but that's what I'm saying. So in algebra, out of the 7, 8 questions that were there in algebra, there were 3 to 4 which were doable at max. The other 3, 4 were absolutely out of the park for me. They were not very easy, or they were not even, questions that I would want to work with anytime in future also. Those were the kind of questions
There was actually a question on arithmetic progression, if I'm right. So the question was something like 1 upon under root x plus under root y is the arithmetic mean of 1 upon under root y plus under root z and 1 upon under root x plus under root z. Now, the moment you see all these things in a reciprocal format or under root के surd के format में, वो question actually has to be kept on the side. हो सकता है उस पे आधा मिनट देके we may find it very easy, but at the end of the day you have to leave that question in the first go.
Correct.
And progressions was actually slightly more difficult than what you would normally expect out here. When I was actually going through the paper, the same thing happened that Ravi said. The first 5 or 6 questions were algebra, and at least, if I remember rightly, the first 2 or 3 were theta questions.
Correct.
And that's where you actually face a lot of problem when you are talking about the number of routes that are possible, the number of solutions that are possible, and you have to type in the answer, you don't see the option, it becomes slightly more complicated. And the biggest thing was algebra did not have questions on functions.
No functions, no patterns.
With options and various other shortcuts.
Yeah.
So that's doable. But this algebra was, I'll say, difficult. And when arithmetic part came in, things actually started to settle down a little bit. But वही था कि you had to make sure that you scroll through either the paper or start identifying the comfort zones when you are attempting the test. That's what the idea should be.
So just a small intervention from my side for students who are from slot 3. क्योंकि I'm sure slot 2 वाले तो सब चले गए होंगे, slot 3 वाले कुछ बैठे होंगे. If you are from slot 3, this is a very good situation to be in if you have in the beginning 7-8 questions which are difficult for you. इसका मतलब आगे आसानी आएगा. And आगे आसान नहीं आया और मुश्किल आया तो यानी सबकी फट जाएगी, कोई चिंता की बात नहीं है. That is the approach I would want you to have in the paper. If you are from slot 3 and you are still here, please don't get psyched out with the fact that paper मुश्किल है, सबकी फटी है तो कोई problem नहीं है. That is what I want you to remember. Yes, back to you.
I just want to add one thing. कि इसमें मान लो algebra heavy आया या whatever, need not mean that second and third slot will be like that. Okay, so we need not conclude anything. It could just work the same way or not. So be prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, that I was taken by surprise by a question based on clocks also. मतलब clocks कौन पूछता है यार? पूछ लिया.
नहीं,
right?
It's been a trend, I'll say, at CAT. Every 3 or 4 years, they will have a question on clocks. Although the question that was asked this year was possibly asked after around 12 to 15 years, जिसमें वो 2/11 का फैक्टर को हमको ध्यान में रखना पड़ता है. ये क्वेश्चन 10-12 साल के बाद आया है, नहीं तो 3-4 साल में एक क्वेश्चन आता है क्लॉक्स का.
So that's what I'm saying. See, the clocks wala question is not difficult, Madhurji, but clocks wala question is not for someone who has not attended any coaching.
That's right.
मतलब अगर तुम कोचिंग नहीं गए हो, तुम कैसे पता चलेगा वो 11/2 आता है करके, वो 5.5, how do you know that is the relative speed, right? That is the problem.
24/11 ही था ना, सब लोग को बहुत टेंशन हो गया.
24/11
24/11.
Yeah, so if you look at the questions that were there people who were dependent on self study, people who were who did even the time, speed and distance का जो एक क्वेश्चन था जिसमें ये लगना था speed 1 by speed 2 is square root of t2 by t1,
time 2 by time 1,
जो जिसमें वो लगना था, if you don't come to a class you don't know that, or if you haven't taken enough mocks you don't know that. So it was not a paper for someone who it was not a secular paper, GP. It treated people coming to coaching as one kind and people not coming to coaching as one kind.
उन्हीं के
That is
लिए
where
पेपर
I
बनाया
got
था ना, उन्होंने बेसिकली बनाया था कोचिंग में ठीक काम हुआ कि नहीं उनके साथ ये चेक करने के लिए.
हाँ, तो that's where I feel that even those top-notch IIT, NIT candidates who typically depend only on test series and say कि boss मेरे को नहीं जरूरत है, मुझे quant आता है वगैरह वगैरह. Right? Even those people would not have found this quant on an easier side. What I feel is quant में there was 3-4 questions which everyone should have done. So वो 80th percentile जो 12 marks पे था, it will more or less stay at the 12 mark only.
So
But
Ravi,
crossing that barrier of 27 marks, 30 marks in this quant and now this question के ऊपर करना was very difficult in this.
So Ravi, Mithun and Madhur, the slide in front of you, overall picture ये बताता है, is this fine or any changes you think would be there? Because this we have created based on feedback from all of you and from students also.
Quant
math score, no problems at all. DILR, I think.
ये ideal score attempt जो है, this is for 99 percentile.
99%.
Okay, so that third last column is 99 percentile score के लिए.
That's right.
हाँ, अब उसको मैं लास्ट वाला देख रहा था, मैं पागल हो गया.
नहीं, वो लास्ट वाला 2021 है, उसके पहले 22 है.
22 है. So
Comparing.
that seems okay to me. DILR could be a mark or two on the lower side because students had to attempt multiple sets, so that might be a possibility.
Right.
Personally, I felt that VARC, particularly the RC passages, the origin or the concepts of the passages were slightly more difficult. Not something that you would find people reading on a regular basis. But I think that has been the nature for CAT over the last many years. So okay, we can go ahead with this. I think we should work with this.
GP, there was a word Tanzania in 2 different passages. Would you believe it? और मैं वापस जाके देखा कि मैं क्या कितने क्वेश्चन है इस पैसेज के.
ठीक है. So if you look at the something which the students would be asking for, just move to the next one. I think ये बहुत जरूरी है. Focus on this the columns on the left hand side. Then we have CAT 22 and CAT 21 for comparison. Now I'm sure this is what most of the students are worried about. So just to give you some comfort, 99 percentile should be at about 80 marks or so. Yeah.
99 percentile will be 80 at best is what I think. मतलब 80 गया तो I will not be very surprised. But any which way, when you get your scaled scores, it is the actual addition of your scaled sectional scores.
Yes.
Right? It's not scaled total score नहीं मिलता तुमको. Scaled score, total score is the addition of scaled sectional score. So overall 80, 85, whatever it is, it's not very consequential. What is consequential is your sectional score scale होके कहाँ पहुँचेगा.
So our estimate based on your feedback and feedback we have collected from numerous students says that 99 percentile for the 3 sections should be 40 and about 27-26 marks for DILR and quant both. 40 for verbal, something similar. And 90 percentile should be overall should be about 48 marks on the high side, could go down also to 45. And individually section wise 30 odd for verbal, 18 for DILR and quant about 15-16. And Ravi, I'm just reminded of what you said. There will be many cases where people would have scored more in DILR and less in quant.
Correct. I will not be surprised if the overall percentiles itself, if I will not be surprised if 99th percentile in DILR is 1 mark higher than 99th percentile in quant.
Yeah. Okay. And I want the students to look at the 80 percentile score because for almost all the institutes, if you have a 80 percentile in a section, you have cleared the sectional cutoff. जो sectional cutoff लेते हैं, so that is the one. Okay.
Barring I am Lucknow, who notoriously conducted this paper.
And MDI.
Even I don't know. I am Bombay का है कुछ क्या की? Are they going to continue with the same because they have a 90 percentile sectional cutoff for general category?
No information as of yet.
Yeah. ठीक है. Okay, so Ravi, if you can see question on the left hand side. Ravi, Midhun, and Madhur, तो कोई बच्चों को क्वेश्चन की बहुत चिंता है, एक सवाल जिसका मेरे पास कोई आंसर नहीं है, वो कहाँ गया वो, हाँ ये था, हीमू पूछ रहा है, हीमू बिग बॉस, चाहे चीटिंग कैसे करे, चीटिंग करने के लिए बगल वाले को कुछ आना चाहिए ना भाई।
Absolutely.
बगल वाले को कुछ नहीं आता तो
और तेरा क्वेश्चन 1 उसका क्वेश्चन 1 सेम होगा, वो जरूरी भी नहीं है।
हाँ,
तो कॉपी करेगा तो प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है।
नहीं, मत जिस तरह से मेरे पेपर में आए थे ना सजील क्वेश्चन, एक लाइन से अलजेब्रा, एक लाइन से ज्योमेट्री, एक लाइन से जो लास्ट 3 क्वेश्चन ज्योमेट्री थे, एक लाइन से स्टार्टिंग में अलजेब्रा थे, बीच में सारे अरिथमेटिक थे।
नहीं बट रवि 7 अलजेब्रा क्वेश्चन इज स्टिल 7 फैक्टोरियल पॉसिबिलिटीज ना,
या वो तो है।
चलो ठीक है, ठीक है फिर।
So what to do now?
Before we move to next one, Ravi, Madhur and Midun, anything specifically you want to add to the students? After that, we'll go to the next one. Anything about the paper overall? बच्चों को टेंशन देने के लिए, शांति रखने के लिए कुछ भी बोलना चाहोगे?
Essentially, what I would say is, देखो जो slot 1 दे के आया है तुम्हारा तो हो गया है, right? This is a post-mortem analysis of what you have done and what we have done, right? So wait for the response sheet. You start preparing. आज का दिन रेस्ट ले लो, कल से एग्जैक्ट के लिए प्रिपेयर करना तैयार करो, स्टार्ट करो. You may have done good, you may not have done good. Okay, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता आगे, because what is done is done. Those who are walking into slot 3 after this analysis, you may see a different kind of a paper also, right? But traditionally over the last 2-3 years जमीन आसमान का फर्क तो नहीं आया है पेपर्स में किसी भी सेक्शन में. तो हो सकता है क्वांट में भी 1 or 2 क्वेश्चंस इजियर इन योर पेपर and DILR may be 1 or 2 questions difficult in your paper. Don't lose your focus, believe your instincts, keep belief in yourself. और अभी तक जो करते आए वो करते जाओ पेपर में, right? ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि तुम्हारा क्वांट भी टफ आएगा, जरूरी नहीं है कि तुम्हारा DILR भी डुएबल आएगा, right? All the best.
And ideally, whatever strategy you have been following while writing the mocks, whatever analysis you have done, make sure that you follow the same pattern. While I tried to solve the LRDI section, I looked at the first set for a couple of minutes, the second one, the third one, and I started with the fourth set. So that's what Ravi has also been saying. That's what I am also saying. The first 7-8 questions, maths ka, were algebra, slightly more difficult. The questions later on were easier. So follow your strategy. Make sure that you scroll the paper. Try and go through some patches where you might find things that are more comfortable to you. Once you do that, confidence apne aap improve hoga. You will end up performing better. That's it.
Yeah. So for my advice for the slot 1 students is just forget about this. Let's wait for the response sheet. SLAT is coming up. SAT is coming up. Prepare for that. And slot 3 guys, like I said, maybe there won't be much change, but be very careful while attending the questions, especially LRDI. You might have to attend multiple sets, right? So all the best for slot 3 and slot 1. Be calm, be chill. Don't worry. We can. SLAT is coming. SAT is coming.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So now what we can expect, guys? Students, आपको सीधा अभी score calculator live हो जाएगा. हो गया होगा. You might go and check. Score calculator will give you an idea कि कितना score आप expect कर सकते हो. What range of score, what maximum, what minimum, depending on your attempts and what corrects incorrects you think it is. So there's a score calculator on our website also. You may just catch score calculator career launcher करके Google करेंगे तो मिल जाएगा आपको. Okay, इसके बाद the next step that we are going towards is percentile predictor. So in a couple of days we come down with the percentile predictor कि भाई आपका कितना percentile आ सकता है, and hence also the suggested colleges. So college predictor, right? So ये सारी चीजें you can expect, and then IIM cutoffs also. So this is the next step for us after this analysis. Again, before I go ahead, I want to just summarize. There is 2-3 things you could do. At least slot 1 वाले जिनका slot खत्म हो चुका है, start preparing for SNAP and ZAT. Focus on SNAP and ZAT, and focus on PDP. Calls आएंगे तो you should not be taken by surprise. So start preparing for your interviews and VAT and stuff like that. This is the time to do that. एक आध दिन का break ले लो, relax करो और शुरू करो. Right? And with this, the next session for the slot 2 and slot 3 people, the impressions wala video live will go on at 3 p.m. So 3 p.m. you can expect the next session. The link is in the description below. You may check it, right? And that's how it is. So today we have 7 sessions. Don't forget at 9:30 p.m. we'll come with a comprehensive analysis and a comparison of an idea about percentiles and stuff on the basis of all the 3 slots that have been. So 9:30 I expect to see all of you for the session. Again, the link is in the description. You can check it out. Okay. So I think with this we are more or less good to go.
Okay, then bye, all the best. And एक मिनट पीछे जाके भैया CAT score calculator जल्दी से भर दो. It will help you. It will help us give you a better feedback as to what your performance has been. It is an estimate, and once your response sheet comes out, please don't forget to upload it on the percentile predictor, and that is where you will get a real idea of exactly, because there it is not an estimate. Right now, you give an estimate of how many questions you attempted, how many right, how many wrong. So it will be an estimate from your side. But if you look at the response sheet and share it with us, you will get the exact percentile. And our track record in percentile has been the best in the industry. Okay? So we'll stop here and we'll meet again. Not me. Others will meet because मेरा slot 3 है, तो अब थोड़ी देर में मैं रास्ते पे होऊंगा. मेरे को मेरठ जाना है.
Same here.
अच्छा, you also going to
Slot 3. No, I'm going to Noida.
तुमको अहमदाबाद से नोएडा भेज देना, तो ठीक है. ठीक है, चलो फिर. Then that's it from my side. All the best.
All the best, guys.
Thank you, Midun. Thank you, Ravi. And thank you, Madhur.
Thank you. Thank you.